A close-fisted, hoarding disposition will have kindred effects. Anger, jealousy, malice, continual fault-finding, lust, has each its own peculiar corroding, weakening, tearing down effects. We shall find that not only happiness and prosperity, concomitants of righteousness, living in harmony with the higher laws, but bodily health as well. The great Hebrew seer enunciated a wonderful chemistry of life when he said, "As righteousness tendeth to life, so he that pursueth evil pursueth it to his own death." On the other hand, "In the way of righteousness is life, and in the pathway thereof there is no death." The time will come when it will be seen that this means far more than most people dare even to think as yet. It rests with the man to say whether his soul shall be housed in a stately mansion of ever-growing splendor and beauty, or in a hovel of his own building, a hovel at last ruined and abandoned to decay. The bodies of almost untold numbers, living their one-sided, unbalanced lives, are every year, through these influences, weakening and falling by the wayside long before their time. Poor, poor houses, intended to be beautiful temples, brought to desolation by their ignorant, reckless, deluded tenants. Poor houses! A close observer, a careful student of the power of the thought forces, will soon be able to read in the voice, in the movements, in the features, the effects registered by the prevailing mental states and conditions. Or, if he is told the prevailing mental states and conditions, he can describe the voice, the movements, the features, as well as describe in a general way the peculiar physical ailments their possessor is heir to. We are told by good authority that a study of the human body, its structure, and the length of time it takes to come to maturity, in comparison with the time it takes the bodies of various animals and their corresponding longevity, reveals the fact that its natural age should be nearer 120 years than what we commonly find it today. But think of the multitudes all about us whose bodies are aging, weakening, breaking, so that they have to abandon them long before they reach what ought to be a long period of strong, vigorous middle life. Then, the natural length of life being thus shortened, it comes to be what we might term a race belief that this shortened period is the natural period, and as a consequence many, when they approach a certain age, seeing that as a rule people at this period of life begin to show signs of age, to break and go downhill as we say, they thinking it a matter of course that it must be the same with them, by taking this attitude of mind, many times bring upon themselves these very conditions long before it is necessary. Subtle and powerful are the influence of the mind in the building and rebuilding of the body. As we understand them better, it may become the custom for people to look forward with pleasure to the teens of their second century. There comes to mind at this moment a friend, a lady well on to 80 years of age. An old lady, most people in fact, would call her, especially those who measure age by the number of seasons that have come and gone since one's birth. But to call our friend old, would be to call black white. She is no older than a girl of 25, and indeed younger, I'm glad to say, or I'm sorry to say, depending on the point of view, than many a girl of this age. Seeking for the good in all people and in all things, she has found the good everywhere. The brightness of disposition and of voice that is hers today, that attracts all people to her, and that makes her so beautifully attractive to all people, has characterized her all through life. It has in turn carried brightness and hope and courage and strength to hundreds and thousands of people through all these years, and will continue to do so apparently for many years yet to come. No fears, no worryings, no hatreds, no jealousies, no sorrowings, no grievings, no sordid graspings after inordinate gain. We have found entrance into her realm of thought. As a consequence, her mind, free from these abnormal states and conditions, has not externalized in her body the various physical ailments that the great majority of people are lugging about with them, thinking in their ignorance that they are natural, and that it is all in accordance with the eternal order of things that they should have them. Her life has been one of varied experiences, so that all these things would have found ready entrance into the realm of her mind and so into her life, were she ignorant enough to allow them entrance. On the contrary, she has been wise enough to recognize the fact that in one kingdom at least she is ruler, the kingdom of her mind, and that it is hers to dictate as to what shall and what shall not enter there. She knows, moreover, that in determining this she is determining all the conditions of her life. It is indeed a pleasure as well as an inspiration to see her as she goes here and there, to see her sunny disposition, her youthful step, to hear her joyous laughter. Indeed and in truth, Shakespeare knew whereof he spoke when he said, "It is the mind that makes the body rich." With great pleasure I watched her but recently as she was walking along the street, stopping to have a word and so a part in the lives of a group of children at play by the wayside, hastening her step a little to have a word with a washerwoman toting her bundle of clothes, stopping for a word with a laboring man returning with dinner pail in hand from his work, returning the recognition from the lady in her carriage, and so imparting some of her own rich life to all with whom she came in contact. And as good fortune would have it, while still watching her, an old lady passed her, really old, this one, though at least 10 or 15 years younger, so far as the count by the seasons is concerned. Nevertheless, she was bent in form and apparently stiff in joint and muscle. Silent in mood, she wore a countenance of a long-faced sadness. It was intensified surely several-fold by a black, sombre headgear, with an immense heavy veil, still more sombre-looking if possible. Her entire dress was of this description. By this relic of barbarism garb, combined with her own mood and expression, she continually proclaimed to the world two things: her own personal sorrows and woes, which by this very method she kept continually fresh in her mind, and also her lack of faith in the eternal goodness of things, her lack of faith in the love and eternal goodness of the Infinite Father. Wrapped only in the thoughts of her own ailments and sorrows and woes, she received and she gave nothing of joy, nothing of hope, nothing of courage, nothing of value to those whom she passed or with whom she came in contact, but on the contrary, she suggested to all and helped to intensify in many those mental states all too prevalent in our common human life, and as she passed our friend one could notice a slight turn of the head which, coupled with the expression in her face, seemed to indicate this as her thought. "Your dress and your conduct are not wholly in keeping with a lady of your years." "Thank God! Then thank God they are not. And may He in His great goodness and love send us an innumerable company of the same rare type, and may they live 1,000 years to bless mankind, to impart the life-giving influences of their own royal lives to the numerous ones all about us who stand so much in need of them. Would you remain always young, and would you carry all the joyousness and buoyancy of youth into your maturer years? Then have care concerning but one thing, how you live in your thought world. This will determine all. It was the inspired one, Gautama, the Buddha, who said, "The mind is everything. What you think you become." And the same thing had Ruskin in mind when he said, "Make yourself nests of pleasant thoughts. None of us as yet know, for none of us have been taught in early youth, what fairy palaces we may build of beautiful thought, proof against all adversity." And would you have in your body all the elasticity, all the strength, all the beauty of your younger years? Then live these in your mind, making no room for unclean thought, and you will externalize them in your body. In the degree that you keep young in thought will you remain young in body, and you will find that your body will in turn aid your mind, for body helps mind the same as mind builds body. You are continually building, and so externalizing in your body conditions most akin to the thoughts and emotions you entertain. And not only are you so building from within, but you are also continually drawing from without forces of a kindred nature. Your particular kind of thought connects you with a similar order of thought from without. If it is bright, hopeful, cheerful, you connect yourself with a current of thought of this nature. If it is sad, fearing, despondent, then this is the order of thought you connect yourself with. If the latter is the order of your thought, then perhaps unconsciously and by degrees you have been connecting yourself with it. You need to go back and pick up again a part of your child nature, with its careless and cheerful type of thought. The minds of the group of children at play are unconsciously concentrated in drawing to their bodies a current of playful thought. Place a child by itself, deprive it of its companions, and soon it will mope and become slow of movement. It is cut off from that peculiar thought current and is literally out of its element. You need to bring again this current of playful thought to you which has gradually been turned off. You are too serious or sad or absorbed in the seriousness affairs of life. You can be playful and cheerful without being puerile or silly. You can carry on business all the better for being in the playful mood when your mind is off your business. There is nothing but ill resulting from the permanent mood of sadness and seriousness. The mood which by many so long maintained makes it difficult for them to smile at all. At 18 or 20 you commenced growing out of the more playful tendency of early youth. You took hold of the more serious side of life. You went into some business. You became more or less involved in its cares, perplexities, and responsibilities. Or as man or woman, you entered on some phase of life involving care or trouble. Or you became absorbed in some game of business which, as you followed it, left no time for play. Then as you associated with older people you absorbed their old ideas, their mechanical methods of thinking, their acceptance of errors without question or thought of question. In all this you opened your mind to a heavy, care-laden current of thought. Into this you glided unconsciously. That thought is materialized in your blood and flesh. The seeing of your body is a deposit or crystallization of the unseen element ever flowing into your body from your mind. Years pass on, and you find that your movements are stiff and cumbrous, that you can with difficulty climb a tree as at 14. Your mind has all this time been sending to your body these heavy, inelastic elements, making your body what now it is. Your change for the better must be gradual, and can only be accomplished by bringing the thought current of an all-round symmetrical strength to bear on it, by demanding of the Supreme Power to be led in the best way, by diverting your mind from the many unhealthy thoughts which habitually have been flowing into it without your knowing it, to healthier ones. Like the beast, the bodies of those of our race have in the past weakened and decayed. This will not always be. Increase of spiritual knowledge will show the cause of such decay, and will show also how to take advantage of a law or force to build us up, renew ever the body, and give it greater and greater strength, instead of blindly using that law or force, as has been done in the past, to weaken our bodies and finally destroy them. Full, rich, and abounding health is the normal and the natural condition of life. Anything else is an abnormal condition. And abnormal conditions, as a rule, come through perversions. God never created sickness, suffering, and disease. They are man's own creations. They come through his violating the laws under which he lives. So used are we to seeing them that we come gradually, if not to think of them as natural, then to look upon them as a matter of course. The time will come when the work of the physician will not be to treat and attempt to heal the body, but to heal the mind, which in turn will heal the body. In other words, the true physician will be a teacher. His work will be to keep people well, instead of attempting to make them well after sickness and disease comes on. And still beyond this, there will come a time when each will be his own physician, in the degree that we live in harmony with the higher laws of our being, and so in the degree that we become better acquainted with the powers of the mind and spirit, will we give less attention to the body. No less care, but less attention. The bodies of thousands today would be much better cared for if their owners gave them less thought and attention. As a rule, those who think least of their bodies enjoy the best health. Many are kept in continual ill health by the abnormal thought and attention they give them. Give the body the nourishment, the exercise, the fresh air, the sunlight it requires. Keep it clean, and then think of it as little as possible. In your thoughts and in your conversation never dwell upon the negative side. Don't talk of sickness and disease. By talking of these you do yourself harm, and you do harm to those who listen to you. Talk of those things that will make people the better for listening to you. Thus you will infect them with health and strength, and not with weakness and disease. To dwell upon the negative side is always destructive. This is true of the body, the same as it is true of all other things. The following from one whose thorough training as a physician has been supplemented by extensive study and observations along the lines of the powers of the interior forces, are of special significance and value in this connection. We can never gain health by contemplating disease, any more than we can reach perfection by dwelling upon imperfection, or harmony through discord. We should keep a high ideal of health and harmony constantly before the mind. Never affirm or repeat about your health what you do not wish to be true. Do not dwell upon your ailments, nor study your symptoms. Never allow yourself to be convinced that you are not complete master of yourself. Stoutly affirm your superiority over bodily ills, and do not acknowledge yourself the slave of any inferior power. I would teach children early to build a strong barrier between themselves and disease, by healthy habits of thought, high thinking, and purity of life. I would teach them to expel all thoughts of death, all images of disease, all discordant emotions like hatred, malice, revenge, envy, and sensuality, as they would banish a temptation to do evil. I would teach them that bad food, bad drink, or bad air makes bad blood, that bad blood makes bad tissue, and bad flesh bad morals. I would teach them that healthy thoughts are as essential to healthy bodies as pure thoughts to a clean life. I would teach them to cultivate a strong will power, and to embrace themselves against life's enemies in every possible way. I would teach the sick to have hope, confidence, cheer. Our thoughts and imaginations are the only real limits to our possibilities. No man's success or health will ever reach beyond his own confidence. As a rule, we erect our own barriers. Like produces like in the universe through hatred, envy, malice, jealousy, and revenge all have children. Every bad thought breeds others, and each of these goes on, ever reproducing itself, until our world is peopled with their offspring. The true physician and parent of the future will not medicate the body with drugs, so much as the mind with principles. The coming mother will teach her child to assuage the fever of anger, hatred, malice, with the great panacea of the world, love. The coming physician will teach the people to cultivate cheerfulness, goodwill, and noble deeds for a health tonic as well as a heart tonic, and that a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. The health of your body, the same as the health and strength of your mind, depends upon what you relate yourself with. This infinite spirit of life, this source of all life, can, from its very nature, we have found, admit of no weakness, no disease. Come then into the full, conscious, vital realization of your oneness with this infinite life. Open yourself to its more abundant entrance, and full and ever renewing bodily health and strength will be yours. And any good may ever conquer ill. Health walk where pain has trod. As a man thinketh, so he is. Rise then, and think with God. The whole matter may then be summed up in one sentence. God is well, and so are you. You must awaken to the knowledge of your real being. When this awakening comes, you will have, and you will see that you have, the power to determine what conditions are externalized in your body. You must recognize, you must realize yourself as one with the infinite Spirit. God's will is then your will. Your will is God's will. And with God all things are possible. When we are able to do away with all sense of separateness by living continually in the realization of this oneness, not only will our bodily ills and weaknesses vanish, but all limitations along all lines. Then, delight thyself in the Lord, and He shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Then you will feel like crying all the day long, The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places, yea, I have a goodly heritage. Drop out of your mind your belief in good things and good events coming to you in the future. Come now into the real life, and coming, appropriate, and actualize them now. Remember that only the best is good enough for one with a heritage so royal as yours. We buy ashes for bread, we buy diluted wine. Give me the true, whose ample leaves and tendrils curled among the silver hills of heaven, draw everlasting dew. End of section 4. Section 5 of In Tune with the Infinite by Ralph Waldo Trine. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Secret, Power, and Effects of Love. This is the spirit of infinite love. The moment we recognize ourselves as one with it, we become so filled with love that we see only the good in all. And when we realize that we are all one with this infinite spirit, then we realize, in a sense, we are all one with each other. When we come into a recognition of this fact, we can then do no harm to anyone, to anything. We find that we are all members of the one great body, and that no portion of the body can be harmed without all the other portions suffering thereby. When we fully realize the great fact of the oneness of all life, that all are partakers from this one infinite source, and so that the same life is the life of each individual, then prejudices go and hatreds cease. Love grows and reigns supreme. Then, wherever we go, wherever we come in contact with fellow man, we are able to recognize the God within. We thus look only for the good, and we find it. It always pays. There is a deep scientific fact underlying the great truth. He that takes the sword shall perish by the sword. The moment we come into a realization of the subtle powers of the thought forces, we can quickly see that the moment we entertain any thoughts of hatred toward another, he gets the effects of these diabolical forces that go out from us, and has the same thoughts of hatred aroused in him, which in turn return to the sender. Then when we understand the effects of the passion, hatred, or anger, even upon the physical body, we can see how detrimental, how expensive this is. The same is true in regard to all kindred thoughts or passions, envy, criticism, jealousy, scorn. In the ultimate, we shall find that in entertaining feelings of this nature toward another, we always suffer far more than the one toward whom we entertain them. And then when we fully realize the fact that selfishness is at the root of all error, sin, and crime, and that ignorance is the basis of all selfishness, with what charity we come to look upon the acts of all. It is the ignorant man who seeks his own ends at the expense of the greater whole. It is the ignorant man, therefore, who is the selfish man. The truly wise man is never selfish. He is a seer and recognizes the fact that he, a single member of the one great body, is benefited in just the degree that the entire body is benefited. And so he seeks nothing for himself that he would not equally seek for all mankind. If selfishness is at the bottom of all error, sin, and crime, and ignorance is the basis of all selfishness, then when we see a manifestation of either of these qualities, if we are true to the highest within us, we will look for and will seek to call forth the good in each individual with whom we come in contact. When God speaks to God, then God responds, and shows forth as God. But when the devil speaks to devil, then devil responds, and the devil is always to pay. Sometimes I hear a person say, "I don't see any good in him." No? Then you are no seer. Look deeper, and you will find the very God in every human soul. But remember, it takes a God to recognize a God. Christ always spoke to the highest, the truest, and the best in men. He knew and he recognized the God in each, because he had first realized it in himself. He ate with publicans and sinners. Abominable, the scribes and Pharisees said. They were so wrapped up in their own conceits, their own self-centeredness, hence their own ignorance, that they had never found the God in themselves, and so they never dreamed that it was the real life of even publicans and sinners. In the degree that we hold a person in the thought of evil or of error, do we suggest evil and error to him. In the degree that he is sensitively organized or not well individualized, and so, subject to the suggestions of the thought forces from others, will he be influenced. And so in this way we may be sharers in the very evil doing in which we hold another in thought. In the same way, when we hold a person in the thought of the right, the good, and the true, righteousness, goodness, and truth are suggested to him, and thus we have a most beneficent influence on his life and conduct. If our hearts go out in love to all with whom we come in contact, we inspire love, and the same ennobling and warming influence of love always return to us from those in whom we inspire them. There is a deep scientific principle underlying the precept. If you would have all the world love you, you must first love all the world. In the degree that we love, we will be loved. Thoughts are forces. Each creates its kind. Each comes back laden with the effect that corresponds to itself and of which it is the cause. Then let your secret thoughts be fair. They have a vital part and share. In shaping words and molding fate, God's system is so intricate. I know of no better practice than that of a friend who continually holds himself in an attitude of mind that he continually sends out his love in the form of the thought, "Dear everybody, I love you." And when we realize the fact that a thought invariably produces its effect before it returns, or before it ceases, we can see how he is continually breathing out a blessing, not only upon all with whom he comes in contact, but upon all the world. These same thoughts of love, moreover tokened in various ways, are continually coming to him from all quarters. Even animals feel the effects of these forces. Some animals are much more sensitively organized than many people are, and consequently they get the effects of our thoughts, our mental states, and emotions much more readily than many people do. Therefore, whenever we meet an animal we can do it good by sending out to it these thoughts of love. It will feel the effects whether we simply entertain or whether we voice them. And it is often interesting to note how quickly it responds, and how readily it gives evidence of its appreciation of this love and consideration on our part. What a privilege and how enjoyable it would be to live and walk in a world where we meet only gods. In such a world you can live. In such a world I can live. For in the degree that we come into this higher realization, do we see only the God in each human soul. And when we are thus able to see Him in every one we meet, we then live in such a world. And when we thus recognize the God in every one, we by this recognition help to call it forth ever more and more. What a privilege! This privilege of yours, this privilege of mine! That hypocritical judging of another is something then with which we can have nothing to do. For we have the power of looking beyond the evolving, changing, error-making self, and seeing the real, the changeless, the eternal self which by and by will show forth in the full beauty of holiness. We are then large enough also to realize the fact that when we condemn another, by that very act we condemn ourselves. This realization so fills us with love that we continually overflow it, and all with whom we come in contact feel its warming and life-giving power. These in turn send back the same feelings of love to us, and so we continually attract love from all quarters. Tell me how much someone loves, and I will tell you how much he has seen of God. Tell me how much he loves, and I will tell you how much he lives with God. Tell me how much he loves, and I will tell you how far into the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of harmony, he has entered. For love is the fulfilling of the law. And in a sense, love is everything. It is the key to life, and its influences are beyond those that move the world. Live only in the thought of love for all, and you will draw love to you from all. Live